Well, I wanted your view on India being able to get a fair share of the global supply chain diversification. Do you think a lot of MNCs will look to set up shop here in India?
Well, it could be India's moment. I think that certainly all supply chains are being reinvestigated by the firms that run them. And if India can put out the red carpet and say, we will have a predictable tax and policy regime, we will allow you to also produce for the domestic market, and don't worry about the pushback from Indian industry, which feels threatened. We will make sure these policies are in place for the foreseeable future. It could result in a significant increase in foreign direct investment. Of course, industrial countries don't want to see supply chains moving from China to India and not coming back into the domestic market. But if India plays its cards well and doesn't make it front and center all about subsidies, that it is about a better production environment and it offers a very viable alternative. And some of the states in India are very interested in doing this. I think if we can do that, it could be India's moment. But a lot more action is needed, and it has to be proactive, not just reactive. It is about creating a better environment in India for foreign direct investment, something we haven't paid enough attention to in the last few years.
Dr. Rajan, in that context, President Trump's almost warning to Apple, that we've tolerated you making in China, but now come back home. And the iPhones that you sell in America need to be made in America. How much attention should we pay to those kind of statements? And actually, the question is, how much attention will Apple pay, or other large global MNCs pay to something to things like this? Because I mean, companies have got to think beyond 4 years, right? Which is the presidential term.
Right. No, I mean, it would be the rare CEO who wants to cross the Trump administration at this point. But it is a negotiation ploy, not so much ploy, but there is room for negotiation. Apple can point to all the work it's doing in the U.S. and the profits it's generating in the U.S. as a result of its creation of new designs, new intellectual property, etc., and say that the manufacturing is essential in a cheaper place so as to get Trump products out at a reasonable price to U.S. consumers, but also to consumers in the rest of the world. That kind of reasonable argument has to be made, but also it does indicate the importance of not trumpeting the fact that you're coming away from China and putting it in India. There is a lot of value to flying under the radar screen at this point and doing what you need to, but also having a frank discussion with the administration on what can be brought back and what can't. Screwdriver technology, assembly, stuff like that is going to be hard to bring back to the US. But certainly, the Apple can say that there's a lot more R&D going on as a result of its ability to sell its products across the world, and that R&D happens in Cupertino, not elsewhere in the world.
I mean, global captive centers here in India has been a huge growth industry with, I think, pretty much all large MNCs here, American and otherwise. Dr. Rajan, let's talk about the trade deals themselves, right? So we've got one with the UK. The US one, I mean, we heard, I think there were some reports saying that over the next 7 to 10 days, we perhaps will get some sort of a framework deal, like an MOU, and then the actual stuff will take more time. What is your sense? I mean, on the India-US deal per se, but more also about these bilateral deals, right? Because these multilateral kind of setups, trading setups are breaking up. It's all sort of one-to-one, country to country. So just wanted your thoughts there.
Well, yes, it is unfortunate that we're not really talking about a global mega deal. But what I do hope is some of these bilateral deals create the kind of momentum which lead a country to think about the bigger picture. It would not be appropriate for India just to do, tariff deals with the U.S. while inhibiting other countries from benefiting from that. It makes sense for U.S. Industry to have the same kinds of rights that, for example, European industry has, which then benefits India because it locates production, it buys from production in the best place possible for India. So, these bilateral deals could get converted into a more multilateral deal, and that would make sense from India's perspective. Now, as you said, these bilateral deals are really, interim arrangements, a statement of principles on where the negotiations are taking place. Actual trade deals take a much longer time to negotiate, while there is an impetus to do it quickly. To dot the I's and cross the T's will take more time. But I do hope that bringing down tariffs with respect to the U.S. gives the impetus for India to bring down tariffs more generally, and thereby reintegrating itself in global supply chains, which it has missed out on. This may be India's moment, and it should use the negotiations to advantage, not simply be driven by the incentive to protect certain segments of Indian industry, but to make Indian industry much more competitive globally and take advantage of this moment in that way.
That's a strong point, a point very well made, sir, that this could be India's moment. We should not look at protecting specific pockets of industry. We should look at the bigger picture and seizing the global opportunity here. Got your point completely. So moving now to the general sense of monetary policy and regulation here. We're coming off from a phase where there was a sense being built up, or there was a sense that unchecked, unsecured lending had to be regulated, and that was done by the previous governor. And since then, some of those prudential norms have been eased out, and now there's an expectation building in the market that we will be in the era of ample liquidity and perhaps big rate cuts as well. In your assessment, does India right now need that level of a monetary growth kicker?
Well, I don't usually comment on Indian monetary policy. I probably know less than I should about it. But let me set it in the global context. Outside the United States, the raising of U.S. tariffs has been a negative demand shock. There's less demand for goods produced by the rest of the world because of the U.S. Tariffs. But also, it does give countries like China, which are big manufacturers, the incentive to look for new markets, which is also going to hold down the price of goods. China is going to look to Europe, to India, to other places to send some of the goods that are not going into the US. So all this means that inflation is less of a problem. Of course, there are India-specific reasons why inflation has come down, including the prospect of a good agricultural crop going forward. So for all these reasons, I think countries outside the United States have the ability to ease monetarily, and if that also implies easing on the liquidity front, that's a good thing. But as you caution, we have to also make sure that as we are enhancing domestic demand, it doesn't get imbalanced. We don't see pockets of excessive credit growth as we saw with the unsecured lending. We have to be a little careful as we expand, once again, that credit is reasonably well allocated, which means a continuing role for careful supervision and regulation.
Dr. Rajan, wish we could go on, but I understand you also have a tight schedule there at the UBS conference. I'm going to just ask you one last, if you will humor me, sir. You're at the UBS conference and you're meeting so many investors and so many people who are there. As you kind of sort of soak in all the feedback and all the commentary there, can I get one big non-consensus view from you, sir? What do you strongly disagree with from everything that you've heard there? If I can ask you that.
Well, let me put it this way, consensus tend to build up, and because they're the consensus, they tend to be wrong. The consensus at the beginning of this year in places like Davos was, U.S. exceptionalism, this is going to continue. And we've seen 5 months later that, it's going the other way. there's enormous skepticism about the U.S. And its policies. And I would say that's again a reason to rethink that maybe all this plays out in a reasonable way, and at the end of it, there is still some sort of faith in U.S. exceptionalism, the innovation, the energy in the U.S. Is still maintained, maybe at a somewhat weaker level. You won't see that in current U.S. policy. There is a lot of ferment going on in the U.S. Administration is trying to do one thing. The courts are trying to do something else. Things will settle down. But if there's one consensus right now, it is everything else is moving up. The U.S. is moving down. And maybe this consensus will prove to be wrong.
It's lovely. And I think it's something we should pay attention to, and we'll keep the back of our mind when we conduct these interviews, because you're absolutely right. That seems to be the prevalent consensus view at this point in time. Dr. Rajan, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for taking out the time and joining us here on CNBC-TV18. It's a pleasure, sir, and hope we can do this again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.